Hi, I'm Jen Newton, registered dietitian at the Skylights Wellness Center. Today we're back for another cooking module, if you will. We are going to be making a savory galette. So a galette is kind of a free-form cake slash pie. Traditionally or more commonly we see these with sweet fillings in them, but today we are going to show you how you can make them a nice main dish as well. So today we're going to be using kale, sweet potato, sausage, add some ricotta cheese, and we're going to put that into a whole wheat crust. So first we're going to start with making the crust, and then I will show you how to put everything together for the fillings. So we're making our pie crust now, and I'm using a food processor for this simply because I find it a little bit easier. But if you don't have a food processor available, you can always do this with your hands as well. So already in the food processor, I have the 1 cup of flour. I've added in a 1/4 teaspoon of both sugar and salt. And then I have cut up my butter into about 1 tablespoon chunks. And I'm going to be adding those into the the food processor rather. And then just going to process that. You're going to want to process it until it becomes kind of a coarse meal, you have some pea-sized chunks in there. So we're going to pulse it instead of just turning it on, just so that we can better have a little bit more control over how long this is what it's going to look like. We don't want to over-process it. So you can see this is cutting up the butter. And we see that we're starting to have some pea-sized pieces in there as the butter gets cut up a little bit more. And again, this won't take very long to do. We just want to make sure that we have it processed enough. But again, we don't want to over process it. And it looks like my butter is pretty much just in small pieces. So this would be our course meal that we're looking at. And so once we get it to this point, we are going to start adding a little bit of water. We want to be careful not to over add the water, so I generally recommend starting with a couple of tablespoons or 1 tablespoon at a time and just sprinkling it around the dough. And again, this ice water is going to help the butter to stay a little more solid and not break down. So I've added about 1.5 tablespoons. And what I'm looking for with this is I'm just wanting the dough to start coming together to form a ball. And you're going to need to add a little bit more water, but again, you're going to want to make sure that you're adding just a little bit at a time so that you're not adding too much water. So I'm going to add a little bit more water to this, probably about another tablespoon. I'm not getting a full tablespoon here, so we're going to do a couple smaller ones. And I'm just spreading it around so I don't have one pocket of water in the food processor itself. So again, just kind of processing. You can see the chunks are getting bigger. We're starting to form a little bit more of a dough in here. It's going to get louder too. As we see, we have a dough or a ball being formed with our dough. And this is pretty much going to tell us that we're done with the water and we're done with processing. So again, I added about 3-ish tablespoons of ice water to this. Once we have it to this point, we're going to take it out and just flatten it out or into a kind of a flattened round mound, and then we're going to put it in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes and then bring it back out and roll it out and then add our filling to it. So our dough that we put into a disc that we just made in the food processor has been in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. So I've taken it out and I'm using some parchment paper to make it easier to transfer it once it's been rolled out. So I'm actually going to roll out the dough on this. So I just have put a little bit of the whole wheat flour on my roller, my rolling pin here, and I'm just going to start rolling this out. Now the good thing about, and one thing that I love about the galette, is that it does not need to be perfect. So where you're making a pie crust, you really want a perfect circle. And of course, I'm going to aim for this to be as close as I can get it, but when it comes down to it, that's one of what I kind of like about it, is that it's a little more rustic looking. We've got our dough rolled out, and I went for about 12 inches, give or take, doesn't have to be exact again. Remember, we're not putting this into like a pie pan. We're actually going to be using just a ring baking sheet that I put a piece of parchment paper in. And again, because I did this on parchment paper, that's going to help me with the transfer of this. And I'm literally just going to flip it over onto it. And I'm going to start filling it. So while the dough was chilling in the refrigerator, I went ahead and prepped our toppings. So we have, like I said, we have our kale, we have our sweet potato, and we have some sausage. I'm going to start because there's you know, you can't go wrong with garlic. I'm gonna start by adding a little bit of garlic to the bottom of this. You can choose to do this. You can sprinkle other herbs or spices on there if you so desire. It's entirely up to you. I'm using this pre-minced garlic. I'm gonna make sure to get some of the garlic oils and juices, if you will, all along the bottom. You can use as much or as little as you desire. Once I get that done, then I'm gonna start loading my toppings with it. Now, because we are gonna be using the dough to also form a little bit of a crust, we're gonna fold up the edges over what we put on for the toppings. We wanna leave a little bit of space. So I'm going to start with my sweet potatoes on the bottom. And these don't have to necessarily be in a single layer, but again, I wanna make sure that I'm leaving about 1 inch to 1.5 inches away from the edges so that I have space to be able to roll it up over them. And again, you can pile this almost as high as you want, you know, within reason. After you've done this a time or two, you'll be able to know kind of what's gonna work best for the particular toppings you're using. I chopped up my kale. I'm gonna add that to the top here. And the good thing about kale is it is going to shrink down as you cook it, so it's not going to seem as massive as it does right now sitting on top of our sweet potatoes. Okay, then lastly, like I said, I cooked up some sausage so that we can have just a little bit of different or additional flavor added to this. Again, the sky's the limit in terms of how you want to use the toppings or what toppings that you want to choose. So just adding some of that on there. And I pre-cooked this just for some of the ease of cook time, as well as so that I don't have as much oil or grease soaking into the crust. The last thing I'm going to do for toppings is add a little bit of ricotta cheese. Now with this, I'm literally just going to take dollops and just spread them around our galette. And I think it just adds a little bit of creaminess. It adds also a visual appeal with the contrast of colors. You can choose to use other cheeses if you want. Again, the sky is the limit in terms of what you do for toppings and what kind of flavor combinations that you come up with. Okay, so once I'm satisfied with my toppings, I'm literally gonna take the crust and just fold it up on itself. So this is not, there's no right or wrong way to do this. The key is that we're just forming a crust all the way around our toppings here. We're gonna end up putting an egg wash on our crust just to help with browning. But once we get this folded up and our egg wash on, it's gonna go into the oven. Okay, so we finished folding up the crust and we were just finishing up putting our egg wash over the outside of it. Again, this is just to help with some browning. So now this is what our product looks like before it goes into the oven. So we preheated our oven to 375 degrees and we're gonna cook this for about 30-35 minutes. So see that? So we cooked our galette in the oven for about 35 minutes, and here's our final product. You can see that the crust has browned up really nicely. The kale is just slightly crisp, and it smells absolutely fantastic. You can cut this using just a large knife, or if you have a pizza cutter, that is also another mechanism that you can use. Regardless, it's ready to be eaten. I encourage you to check out this and other recipes on our Facebook page.